Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Ron Tan. I co-advise the student chapter of International Relations Roundtable SCIRRT, and Michelle Cohen, Professor Cohen is the other co-advisor. We're very pleased today to have Martha Spiers to be here to talk about librarianship in Azerbaijan. She's currently the Dean of Library and Information Services at ADA, which stands for. Okay, and she will actually give you some background of her, experiences in different countries, in different international librarian positions. So, without further ado, we have Martha.
Thank you. Nice to see you all here today. I'm really glad to be here. You know, I'm an alumni of Simmons. I graduated in '91. And not shortly thereafter, but in '96, I started out working overseas. And since then, I've been overseas. I mean, I do come back, I'm back now for a break. And I'm not sure, you want me to start with talking about what I've been doing generally, and then get to Azerbaijan?
I like that idea a lot.
Or do you want it?
All those other countries that you've gone to is
And we
rich.
can have questions at the end, I guess. But
Yeah.
So I started out because I saw a job ad at the American University in Cairo, Kahira. So I said, okay, let's try this. You know, I had, by the way, my childhood, my father was in the United States Armed Forces, so we were living overseas a lot. So I knew this whole thing, you pack up, you move to another country, you pack up. So maybe it made it easier for me. So I had my Simmons degree and I got the job, and so I headed off to Cairo long before the Arab Spring, and it's just a lovely place. I really still love Cairo so much, and Michelle can agree, right? And so I spent 7 years there. I'll jump over that quickly, but it was, it's a great school because it's been an American university overseas. I think it's one of the first ones, that Beirut and Cairo. And so I went there and we moved into the library. This was already an established library. And so the challenge was computer age was just starting. And so we had to computerize the library. That was really what I was going in there for. And half of the, well, I'd say 60% of the books were in English and 40% in Arabic. So how do you search the library catalog, you know? So after working, I don't want to get too long about this, but after working with innovative interfaces, we set up the system in the early days, really, and figured out, you know, I worked with them for quite a while, and we finally have a bilingual catalog with searching, you know, right to left, left to right, control shift, and switch the keyboard, and it was really interesting, and that's one thing I do want to talk about a little more, the languages, and I'll get to that with each country, but Arabic is the most challenging language because you do have the changing of each character as you move on through the word. And then the searching, you know, it's not easy, and it's still a work in progress in the world now. Is multilingual information retrieval, and that's what when I met M. Claire, I think in Singapore, I had given a talk on that, and it's still working. The real multilingual information retrieval. But let me move on. So after Cairo, I went to Abu Dhabi. And see, in Cairo, I wasn't the dean. I was there as the director of technology services. But I thought, all right, now here's another position. After 7 years, time to move on. And I took a position at the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research. So they had a library, but they had 13 villas. And Sheikh Mohammed built this beautiful tower and a library. And so I went there to help reestablish, I guess you could say, to pull together everything, to get the systems, the staff, and the building itself set up. And you know, we set up Millennium there, and we set up RFID and everything. So that was 2 years of really really hard work at getting the place set up. And then I moved on to go to Africa. So after those 2 years, American University was looking for Americans to set up a university in Nigeria with American University and the Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar. So we moved there, we went in, we were given land and the blessings of the government and everything, and we set up a university. And I was there almost 7 years too. And that was big. I could spend hours telling you about that. That was quite a project. And so that involved everything from going in from the ground up, setting up everything. But that's what I enjoy. And so after those many years, it's about 7 years seems to be an itch, the 7-year itch and stuff. I got recruited actually at an ALA meeting and agreed to go to Azerbaijan, where I am now. I've been there now 3 years. And they wanted someone to do what I'd done in other places, to come in and establish and set up the library. They had a very small library, a very small, a smallish collection, because it was a very, I'll explain more. Maybe now we should jump into Azerbaijan. I mean, I didn't want to take too long with those other countries, and you can ask me more about those afterwards, okay? So let's move on to Azerbaijan, and I think you might have seen in the American libraries, if you look at this in June, there was a story about not just the university where I am, but the whole country. Leonard Knefel, who writes for American libraries occasionally, came over and said, "Oh, I'm here. Let's do a story." So it gives you some background, and there's our university, and actually one of the nice things is the map, and there's me, and the contrast between the different libraries, which I'll get more into. So I have printed these out. Do you want to distribute these evenly? And I can print more. But you can also get it online, American Libraries, the June issue. And it's in EBSCOhost.
Many of them are ALA members too.
Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a background, but it's not just the school. And you can see when I'm finished, see if you agree that it's done a good job in covering what I hope to cover. Also, all right, so I went to Azerbaijan, which is Baku. I don't know, I said, where is Baku, Azerbaijan? Most people in the United States have not heard about this place because it's in the Caucasus and it sort of gets lost between Europe and Asia. And it is between Europe and Asia. Actually, the Ural goes right through it. You've got half Europe, half Asia. So there's a little bit of an identity crisis, I think, sometimes with trying to describe what you are. They're on the Caspian. Do we have a map?
We don't have.
No, okay. In there it shows you a little bit. On the Caspian, below is Iran, above is Russia, Chechnya, Dagestan, and Georgia, and then Armenia is this little bit here. And then across the Caspian, you have the stands. You have Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, not Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan at the top of the Caspian. Yeah, it would be good if you looked at maps.
I'm sure you have it on the internet, but
I could go to it, yeah. But look at it, and maybe afterwards we can look at it too. All right, so I arrived there, and the university was in a smallish building downtown, and the library was relatively small, maybe twice this length, and then upstairs. What we had to do was then to develop the new campus and the new library, which is, a beautiful big building and the new library. So, and it was just being built when I got there. So once again, I found myself starting up you know, with the architecture, with the setting up, where do you want this, where do you want that, where's technical services, what should the SCIRRT decks look like, putting in the servers and the systems and hiring the staff, and all of those are a little different in other foreign countries than it would be here, you know, because what is their background? And I'll get to that in a minute. And then the university itself was called Azerbaijan Diplomatic Academy, ADA. So Azerbaijan Diplomatic Academy. The rector, our rector, we call him the ambassador. He was the first ambassador to the United States in the post-Soviet times. So 92, 91, 92, you know, is when the Soviet Union divided, or whatever you call it. I don't want to say collapsed, but you know, it dissolved. And so Azerbaijan finds themselves with a country. And you know, I think you were saying, and Claire was saying, when she was there 40 years ago, it was clearly part of the Soviet Union. But it isn't. It is its own place. It's made up of khanates and very much, you know, a Caucasian mountain and down to the Caspian, Caucasian set of different khanates, you know, and the lines were drawn like, I mean, Iran has, there are Azerbaijanis living below the line that's Iran. There are Azerbaijanis in, well, I'm not so sure about the Armenian, Georgia, Russian, very much people were, you know, they didn't have those lines drawn like that. And you can see there's a separate section too. And that decision was made at that point by Russia. I mean, a lot of this was, yeah. So, I mean, we can get into history, but you can read about it too. But so the diplomatic, so when the ambassador went to the United States, he said, okay, I'm here representing Azerbaijan. And people said, where is that? You know, what is that? So a lot of his job was to explain that this is a country that exists now. It's its own country. And so for 15 years he was in Washington. He went back to Azerbaijan. He said, okay, now I'm going to send out ambassadors. There was nobody really that was speaking English that knew what it would be like to go out to any other country. So they started the Diplomatic Academy, and then that became the model or the basis of ADA University, and it's happening very quickly. We have a School of Public and International Affairs, and they offer scholarships to people all around the world. We have many, many students with free scholarships, free master's degree. And the same with School of Business, and there's the Gen Ed, and now we're adding a School of IT and Engineering and a School of Education. You can just pass those around. So that's, and I found myself with this developing curriculum having to support it and saying, okay, now I've got to really go and support this area. Now I'm working with getting ACM and all those resources to support the IT, and I'll have to get some engineering things and education. So, and here's just a small brochure about the library itself. So let's go to the PowerPoint. I'm probably going to repeat myself. So the current status of librarianship, I don't teach library science. We're not a library school. I'm the library, you know, I run the library in this school. But we're doing a lot for the region because we have had conferences, you know, we're trying to show best practices to the rest of the country because ADA has the president's decree to be sort of like a model. So everything in Azerbaijan is not this fancy. It's not, you know, and Baku itself has the money, has the oil money. BP went in there, and there's a lot of development of oil from the Caspian. But Baku is, yeah, the rich center here. But you go out to some of the other areas, Sheki, Ganja, and you'll see it's pretty much agrarian. You know, it's basic, farms everywhere. Sheep, you know, that's for the kebabs. Sheep and goats and, you know, they grow, you know, they're famous for all their fruit trees, cherries. And so And what else to say? This is a map. I forgot I have this little map here anyway. So you've got the Caucasus Mountains. This is very mountainous. And you know what mountains do? They separate people. And so lot of languages. The Caucasus are known for having a lot of native indigenous languages spoken by small groups because it's only 9 million people, 86,600 square kilometers. So, yeah, October 91, it was part of, the whole Soviet Union, and now it's a separate country. And it has a government, a president, and I just mentioned he's been in place since 2003. He's now in his 3rd election. Now, let's go to the library part. It says 2,037 libraries, and I've gotten this from a study that was done by a Russian PhD study. And the thing is that what they consider a library might be somebody's room in their house, and they're getting paid to be the librarian for the town or something. But, do they have? They have a few books, maybe, so it's really hard to state exact numbers. And then this one, okay, so actually the USSR during that time, they did a lot to encourage libraries. But it was, of course, all in Cyrillic, and the older things were in Arabic, and they were part of the USSR library system. Everything was based out of Moscow. So it's undergoing incredible change in the last 20 years because they're instead of turning east to Moscow and everything coming out of there, it's turning west. And you'll see that's why ADA is developing. So when it says that many libraries, you'll see in a minute they aren't that big. Okay, so that is the National Library. This is what I found in Himily, which is the highest, I think it's the highest village anywhere, because the Caucasus are higher, they have a peaks higher than the Alps. But what I'm gonna do, I can click on these if it works. Oh, okay. See if I can do it. So the National Library, always a good place to go when you go to a country. Yeah, they always name their libraries after them, after somebody named after Ahuno, very famous writer. It's run by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. So all the public libraries are under the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Now, they have they say they have 23 million books. Most of the books before it's on another slide, the language thing, they would have been in Arabic. The writing was in Arabic script, but it's not Arabic. It's either the language Azerbaijani, probably Azerbaijani, or maybe some of the indigenous languages, and they encode it using the Arabic script, Ajami, because you're using that script. That's the only script people knew in the up until the early 1900s. So a lot of those scrolls I showed you, or those papers were in, you'd say, oh, it's Arabic. You try to start reading it, you're like, what? This isn't Arabic. So that after 1920, I have the dates exactly on another slide. Ataturk, I don't know if you're aware, Ataturk decided we're going to change to Latin script. And it's a Latin script, but it has a couple, if you look at, you can pass my card around. If you look at even the way my name and address are, it's got a few upside down E's, it's got umlauts. There are differences from Latin script that we use with Romance languages. So everybody all of a sudden had to switch to Latin script. And they're reading pretty much Azerbaijani, or maybe Russian in Latin, no, not Russian, just Azerbaijani or indigenous languages with Latin script. And then when that was only for a few years, and then when the Russians took over and it became part of the Soviet Union, then everyone had to start using Cyrillic. So you come to school that year and you'd have Cyrillic, you know? So there was like, okay, what script are we using today? So you can imagine trying to search for anything in their libraries. It's not just one, you know, two languages, but various languages and various scripts. And just because you're searching one script doesn't mean you're searching one language. So it gets to be really difficult. No, I wanted to show you this, and you know, I will get you, I can give you this PowerPoint so you can do this yourself, because I don't think we really have time to go through each one as we go. Should we do that?
Yeah, we'll go back to PowerPoint.
Where? D. Yeah, this is not the best mouse. Okay, list of public libraries under the Ministry of Culture. It gets very confusing.
You have to.
Oh, I'm not on the,
Into the.
where's the thing? Oh, down there. And the Ministry of Culture, this is the way it is in many, oh, okay. So they're listed under here anyway. So they'll have all these libraries listed. Public Library, Kirahali Settlement, and they're just very small. And they will have in them now, they will have a lot of Russian, because Russia is where the publishing houses are. The Azerbaijanis don't have many publishing houses, and this is a problem, and they're working on that. If it's not published, then people are not gonna read it, right? I mean, they do a lot of that as self-publishing and photocopying, you know, those, and of course no ISBN or no, you know, sort of control. But, so that's what is in most of these libraries. You might see, you're mostly gonna see Russian. And that's changing now. They're starting to want to use English. And the problem is that people don't know the English out in the regions, so they're it's going to be slow. If you, like in Africa, I started an NGO where I had the maybe this is going to take too much time going back and forth because
Martha, what are the official languages of the country?
it's Azerbaijani. They don't
Okay.
want, you know, after they
Just
have.
one language.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
official language. Azerbaijani, it's a Turkic language. It's almost identical to Turkish, I say, and then they say, no, it isn't. You know, it's, you know, I know we have Turkish vendors come in and they all are chatting away. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that different, but it's Turkic, but then Russian is very big because Russian was the sort of posh language. It was the one, you know, if you were educated back in this, of course you went to a Russian university. And this is a big switch. They would send all of their documents, you know, their theses, everything went to Moscow. So when somebody asked me, even ILL, can you find this? I had one request the other day and it said, oh, it's in Tbilisi in Georgia. It wasn't. It was in Moscow because in that time all of these, it was an old one. So you have to think about history and say, oh no, in that era, we sent everything to Moscow. So it was found there. And there is a Central Scientific Library. They're building a new library right now. But still much left to do to rescue their cultural heritage. And these were just on the floor and stuck in a cabinet up in Hinnerley. So now universities, and this is universities and university libraries. I wish this were easier to click through, but I'll show you ours, which is probably the newest one, and it's not at all typical because we have, well, we're teaching in English, and like I said, we're really highly funded by the government. This is the ambassador that was the first ambassador to the U.S. for 15 years, and some of the things going on at the university. So if you were to go work overseas, this would be an easy place to work because everyone speaks English. It's set up like an American university. There isn't that big culture clash. At least I don't think so after having worked
And looking at the brochures, they feel very comfortable to look at, you know.
People
Very
say,
familiar.
Very
familiar, this doesn't look international, people come and they say, oh, I thought it was in the States.
Yeah.
So no, that's what I want to caution you, that this is not typical. And I'll show you, that's why I wanted to show you some of the other, because you know, we have the newest technology and everything. So what we have done is I did put on a conference for the local people, for the region. So in April, I hosted this conference and brought in speakers to speak about best practices. And it was really good. You probably know some of the people here. I had Jim Adji come from Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. Julie came from Wales. And yeah, Iraqli, anyone who's ever been to Georgia and would know Iraqli. He's the top librarian in Georgia. And this is one of my staff members, Mushfiq Whoops, happening here. And OCLC, ProQuest, we had a lot of people coming in. And they're all trying to get into the region, Elsevier, because we wanted to, because they can see that everyone's turning west. And everybody now, or not everybody, but you know, so a lot of the scholars can actually read the English and they're interested in publishing in, you know, scope it in Elsevier or some of the ProQuest and the other sort of.
What library automation systems do you have?
We're using Millennium, Innovative Interfaces. And we're just getting summing up. So, I mean, this is really puts you off in a way because it's not the typical. Let me go show you. Baku State is the biggest university. It's the one with the library school. I know.
So they still have a library school?
They have a library school in Baku State. I haven't seen any computers there, but
Is it master
I mean,
level?
it's like night and day. That's why I hesitate to show you all of this other stuff.
So is it a graduate program?
Yes, they have undergraduate. They have really big on Bachelor of Library Science, but
Okay.
they have masters and they have doctorate. One of my staff is getting the doctorate.
Okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's. See there, it will be in Azerbaijani. I may be able to get English here.
There's an Ian.
Yeah. May not all. So it's a huge school and it has the School of Library Science. They need a lot of help. I mean, I would love to see, I have gone and we're trying to get the Library Association going. The head of the Library Association is part of this program, but nothing's been done for years, you know. We're trying to help revive a lot of the state of librarianship because they're all using the old Russian system, and now they're trying to encode the Latin in it, and they're saying it works. You know, there's a lot of big change going on from, I mean, even the researchers will say, oh, well, I've got to send my article to Moscow, because that's where you send things, and you publish in a Moscow journal. Well, the rest of the world won't necessarily see that journal, and they won't be rated, and you know, so I think there's a need for things to come together, like all the ISI journals and Web of Science, to include the Chinese, the Russian, because of the scripts, they're just not getting put in. There's a lot of hidden knowledge there. And Arabic, yeah. So, I don't know, I don't see, do you see the schools structural units?
Is this, yeah, structure?
Faculty. Yeah, the separate faculties, but that's the other thing, often these websites don't really work. I don't know if you want me to spend the time on this, or I can give you the links and you can look at it. But I wish you could come and see, and walking down some of the halls in the library area, I could smell the mold. You know, I mean, they're teaching library science, but the level is very low, and I really hope to see that improve. Two of my staff members are teaching there, beginning level bachelor's classes. And so I think what I've done is I've stolen the best people for my school, and we're trying to be top level, and then we need to give back, you know. So we have the conference, and we'll bring them in, and Springer will be there on Friday, next Friday when I get back, and then we're inviting librarians to come, but if they're not set up with the internet well enough, then it's really hard for them to take advantage of it. Baku does have very good internet. It is, it's the rich area, the regions not so much. So we can at least start there, and I think starting with the school itself is important. I think we may have to come back to some of this. So Kafkaz, Kazan, and the University of Languages, and there are more, but a lot of the others are just small. And I don't know, the reputation is, all right, now did I? Uh-oh, I did that. All right, so this is what I was talking about before. Arabic script was used to encode the language before 22. You understand that? Is that al-Arabiya? Is that spelled correctly?
There is one letter missing.
The al.
Ba. There is one letter is missing.
Oh, the ba is not
Yeah.
there. Okay, we'll fix that. You know what, I needed to. What did that? Okay, then from 22 to 39, a new Turkic script was implemented. There was a republic there, and that was a democratic republic of Azerbaijan, and it was squashed and when the Russians came in. So then they had to switch to Cyrillic, and then they have this revised Turkish alphabet. Yes, these are the different characters that they have. So you can just imagine a library is very confusing. You know, which language? Oh, which script? No, I need that language and that script. You know. So it's been fun. I find that one of the exciting parts of working overseas. You do have the different, it's not boring, that's for sure. This is a strong legacy of the Russian library systems, but this is rapidly changing, and many educational institutions are facing west and looking to join universal practices. And this is where it is located. If you go to Turkey and just head east, you know, you'll run into it. So it's a little warmer than here most of the time, but similar. Yeah. So this is the conference that I was telling you about, and you can go and look at it. Whoops. This is, okay. That's it now for
So you said that the temperature
is about like here,
like
but
here,
warmer.
right now, all year long?
No,
Yeah, no,
it's
hot,
like
hot.
here.
Yeah.
So.
How'd you get out of that?
Skip the ad now.
They'll shut off.
It's stitched down.
Really happy.
It'll come, okay. So this is just a little brief. You've got the Caucasus, I mean, that's what it's known for. This is what it's like. But not in Baku. Baku is down on the water and it's like a desert.
So would you say it's an agriculture country or?
It's agricultural, yes. This is Sheki, this is north. This is the Sheki Palace.
Turkish architecture, Azerbaijan.
And I just remember the water.
Yeah, it would be Turkic. I mean, but they like to think it's their own special. These are caravanserai. When the Silk Road goes through here, and when the camels stop, they go into their, it's like motels, you know, like motel rooms. The two little rooms, and you tie your camel outside. The food, it's interesting now because it has that Iranian, a little bit Middle East, Russian now. You get borscht there, which it's really quite mixed. But yeah, they don't like to hear that. You're unique, right?
Yeah.
But it has influences, of course.
But is there religion Muslim?
It is, yes, so it's mostly Muslim, but remember, for the last 80 years, it's been atheist. Because when the Russians were there, it was atheist.
Yeah.
So now that the Russians have left, we have religious freedom, and I wouldn't say that any religion is that strong. I mean, I hear the call to prayer, but it's not like I don't see people practicing much. But we have a Jewish town. We have there's some Christian, because of the Orthodox Russian, Orthodox Georgian, there's some Christian influence. Petroglyphs outside of town, very ancient. And I just don't know that much history, but if you want to look at the Safavid Empire, of course the Ottoman, the different, so many people coming in and going through. And it's known for its fire. It's called the land of fire because the oil is on the ground. And this is a fire temple that the Zoroastrians worship. This is where Zoroastrian religion started. And then really moved more to Iran and then over to India. But, yeah, so this is like the dancing and the mountain cultures. And the Caspian with the oil wells, and they're probably not showing. Keep it clean and neat, So in Baku itself, you have some very fancy buildings and the flame towers and
Sounds like a place to go.
that's Jumeirah Beach Hotel. We have a Jumeirah Beach Hotel in
Whoa.
Baku. It's trying to be a little bit Dubai.
think I need a
Well, okay, we can talk. I need help.
Where's her card?
So, it's pretty poor country. It's rated low because most of the 9 million, well, not most, there's about 3 million in Baku. And I think if you looked at that, you would think it was a rich country. But outside that, it's not. So it measures that it's still a low enough GDP that we get reduced rates on a lot of the databases. If you just go to YouTube and you Google Baku, you'll see many more. But it's a lovely place to live. I live in the old town, and very old. That Maiden Tower is.
Even the music is mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear that too.
Yeah. Sheep.
Well, the location is
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got these major
So are you
cultures.
working in a public university or a private?
It came under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so most of our financing is government, but we have the foundation, and so I think, I don't want to say anything, but it's sort of separate, a bit separate.
So it's a governmental ball with a space of freedom.
Oh, yeah.
So who's funding the university?
No, the government is funding most of it, but it's a little bit of like a pilot project.
I see.
Like this is the model we want. And the education, especially undergrad, high school and everything has really been bad. So they'll say, oh, we need a school of education, which we're starting now. Because let's try to develop. And we're developing IT and engineering because you can't count on oil forever, just like Dubai is saying.
So they don't control internet, do they have internet filter?
Yeah.
Or some sites you cannot access?
Especially.
No, I mean, we have total open.
Okay.
I haven't run into any walls.
So I have a question for you, Martha, too. I looked at the brochures
All
that you
right.
passed around, and it looks as though most of the students are women, or they chose to put women in the brochures.
About half and half.
Is it?
Yeah,
It
really?
looks like it's
That's
about
interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
you look at the men, the
There's like, there'll be
faculty.
2 men and 16 women,
But
as
the
the
faculty
photographs.
is mostly.
Yeah.
In the
Like
faculty?
American
No, I'm talking
brochure
about
to
the
me.
students.
Oh,
Just looks like American brochure to me.
I don't know,
They can just choose women to take photos.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Photographs.
wondering.
It's the same thing as American
It
University.
seems like in the
They
one
must
that
have
is
really-
like the
Don't
same
keep-
woman was.
Yeah,
I need
it's
to
real
do that
money.
multiple times.
It's real money.
I actually had a question about ADA's, especially the libraries, ADA's relationship with other schools in Baku. Is there some sort of like consortium or
Yes.
internship program between?
Good question. There, in the Baku state, there was a very fledgling little consortium, and they got everybody's money
It's pretty
for
cool.
when I got there. But since I've been there and we've developed this, now we are really big pushing the consortium. And we've gotten so many vendors coming, and now we're getting more through the
Like a
consortium.
Baku consortium, so all those schools?
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly universities. I'd like to see more, that's why I had that, the Minister of Culture gave me 15,000 manat to do that conference too, because we were really teaching all of his public librarians. So it's a lot cheaper for him than sending them out. And that's one of the things American universities overseas often say, oh, you don't have to send your child to the evil empire, you know, to the state. They can get the same, sorry. You can get the same education here, you know, and especially, and like in the Emirates, yes, the girls stay home more. And you'll see more of the females staying at university at home, but. No, I'm trying to work on that. I did, in Nigeria, I helped develop the association a bit more. This state had one that was defunct, and we brought that back up. I mean, it's a lot of work, but, you know, they do want to change, and they do want to move forward. And sometimes it's just money, but sometimes it's also just getting people enthused. Questions? Yes?
So with the money that you're passing around,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just curious about like the exchange rate kind of thing, like what would
Oh,
that?
yeah. Okay.
purchase-
All right, so, gee,
And like what's
I'm
that
trying to
called?
remember exactly.
Do they
It's
call it?
0.8, okay. So 10 manat is like $12, $13? Yeah, because I'm always spending it like it's $10. I rather know it's more.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was the euro. It was pretty much pegged to the euro for a while too. But it depends. It changes, but you were telling me, right, that the euro's changed a lot?
I did,
Oh, it's
yeah,
been going
it's
down,
going down, yeah.
But, so yeah, so you have to be a little careful and not blow it. Yes.
So, could you, can you talk about maybe the challenges that you went through to actually work overseas? Because
Yeah.
you're not working for the United States, right? So you're having to get visas and all sorts of.
I have a work permit. When I was hired, and this is what I was saying, if any of you are planning or hoping to go overseas, make sure that you look really carefully at your contract. If you go to someone like American University in Cairo that's been there for 100 and some years, they know how to do all this. If you go to a startup, be very careful, check your contract, and make sure that everything is in there. And it depends on the country too. The country sometimes will only take 3 people under the category librarian. And then, you know, so you have to sometimes shift your job title a little. There's all these permutations. But then you get your work permit, you're all set. It's like a green card or something.
So most of your stuff has been through people that are hiring? not
Yeah,
even
through the people who are hiring you, hopefully. Even in Azerbaijan, they hadn't had many expats, so it was a new thing to them. So I sort of felt like I was leading them and saying, no, you have to do. And now when other people come along, they learn more and more. But if you go to an established, or if you work for the Department of Defense overseas or something like that, you're gonna be right in the channel, you won't have to worry so much. It's when you go out and you decide to work for some university that has no foreign connection. It's gonna be more challenging to you normally, somewhat because of the language. You know, I mean, there are places that are teaching in English, like a few of these University of Languages, a few of the universities listed, they are teaching in English, and they do get expats coming in, but they don't really get any help to speak of. You know, so there's that. I think when you're beginning to go overseas, it's good to go with someone with a good support network.
Lisa? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just gonna, like, tack on to the language question. Do you, you said you traveled a lot when you were younger, so do you pick up languages easily? Is it something that, like, you knew some sort of, like, Arabic before you went in? Are you
No, I didn't
learning as you
before,
go?
I mean, I went to high school in France partially, so I had the French down. I learned Spanish because I felt they were so similar. But then you cannot do a Turkic language like Azerbaijani with any kind of Romance background, doesn't help you. The Arabic background helped me to a certain extent, but if I would give advice, it would be try a Slavic language, and then you're covering a whole group, you know, even if it isn't Russian, you're covering that area and you have some idea. Azerbaijani is an SOV language, you know, subject, object, verb. The verb's at the end. So you wait, you have to wait to see. It's very different. Yeah, so, but I think what would be the best language, I mean, most of the places people will speak some English, of course, but I mean, Romance languages, I suppose, are good if you're going to do Spanish in South America, but it doesn't help you that much. I mean, Russian is good because it covers, even Kazakhstan, some of the stands are not going back to their indigenous language so much, they're staying with Russian. Or a Turkic language would cover an area too. But yeah, get into languages, they're fun.
Well, and going off of that, like, so you said that growing up in France a little bit, you learned French and Spanish. Did you, when you moved to Cairo, when you got that job in Cairo, was that your first exposure to Arabic? Like, how is your language learning evolved since
Right
then?
now, if I tried to speak Arabic, you would laugh. I'm a big Alim Bil Arabi.
Egyptian Arabic.
Shwaya mas. Shwaya bas, yes. Elor Arabiya Masreya. Yeah. Only Masreya because, you know, I go to Lebanon or Morocco and they don't, except because of the movies, they're understanding some. So no, I picked it up when I got there, and if it's a good school, you'll get classes. They just allowed me to get classes for free. Right now I can do Azerbaijani classes too. Yes.
I just consider, because when I hear your experience moving from country to other country, and we in Kuwait, we're gonna have a big project in the new campus of Kuwait University, and they are putting a lot of, you know, investment on the library and how it's gonna be. So, I just wanna ask about small things in terms of when you're trying to set up a new library. So what's the most, you know, factors that really you consider when you open up, when you set up an academic library? That's really important to know what the things that you really have to have them, and not like
Human capital, I mean, I think setting up staffing is really important. I mean, you can get you can get the IT people to help you with setting up the computers, but getting the right staff, it's not easy, as you know, in some countries, you're not gonna find people. I mean, a lot of my work has been training. You know, when I went to Cairo, training, I had a lot of staff, and I thought that was one of the things we really succeeded in, having them understand well, Library of Congress, the, you know, AACR2, they might have been doing things they were using other thesauri and everything, and that's fine, but we tried to keep both, you know, going. That was a little more complicated. But even where I am now, the staff, I've sent them off to lots of conferences, as many as I can, not just conferences. What I really would like to do is internships. I would love to have any of you come over or have my staff, you know, if there's some way that people can come and really be in the library, you know, behind the SCIRRT desk or in cataloging and seeing what's going on. I think that, because you can't, you know, people have to do.
And as a foreigner to work overseas,
Yeah.
I mean, how can you handle the cultural heritage, the identity of the, because it's kind of difficult. So you're like leading another university, and
Yeah.
and you're leading different countries.
Their cultures,
So
yeah.
what about the cultural heritage and the identity of the country itself? How you handle that in terms of when you try to set up a library?
Well, there again, you're relying on, you are training, I'm training the people, the local people to take this over. I'm not gonna stay there forever. And the way you sustain anything is by training the people who will be staying there, you know? When I left Nigeria, we had done a really nice job on getting some of the cultural heritage going there, and things that had never been saved or appreciated. And we did some oral history and things like that, but then I leave, so I think, but I can lead. I mean, they were very generous in including me as being part of their country, you know? But they know that you're not really one of them, that you're not going to be there forever, probably. So I think, again, it's spotting the human capital, or what would you call it, the human interest too, and sustaining that on the ground there, so when you leave, everything doesn't fall apart. I guess that's all you can do. But try to build up a repository. We're starting a repository now, you know, for the...
And does that shape the service that you're gonna give?
The what?
Does that, I mean, that cultural heritage or the identity, does it, draw a kind of services? Does it affect the services that you're gonna set,
You mean
over?
service?
Yeah, the service, the library
The
services.
services to the
Public. or to
university?
The university, yeah.
You mean, does it take away from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to get stabbing. Yeah, this is a part of, I would like to do, I mean, there are plans for us to do the National Digital Library as part of the university eventually. And but that's gonna require it's a whole other project plan. I'm just saying, we're doing some little repositories with PCs and other things and beginning, but yeah, it's a lot of work, yes.
So you're talking about exporting sort of librarianship best practices to these countries that are trying to set up library systems, but what stuff that we would consider best practices that aren't best practices in these countries aside from just the script problems? Is
Yeah.
there it seems I'm learning it's pretty much American librarianship, and you don't hear
Yeah.
a lot of
I don't
what the
like
Germans are doing or
imposing.
something, but
Imposing values.
right, so, but I don't know exactly what I'm learning that's mostly just American, other than LCSHs in English and all that, but what's the tricky differences between Africa and the sort of the Eastern librarianships? What's
Yeah.
is there stuff that's actually different, or do you find that it's actually pretty portable?
Well, I have one staff member now working to do a thesaurus on Azerbaijani and the local, and to talk to Library of Congress about, oh my God, look what you've got for subject headings for this area, you know? And I set up a funnel, an authority, name authority funnel, NACO, in Africa, for Middle Africa. So to contribute, Library of Congress has never heard of some of these authors because they've never seen their books, you know? So, and we're cataloging them, and we're giving them an OCLC and they're getting into NACO. But I think to encourage the people to, very good question, yeah, to get their own culture, not just to take what Library of Congress says, yeah. Because, for instance, our ambassador, the head of the university, they have his name in there in a Russian, because at that time he was publishing in Russian, and they've taken his name, and the authority is not what he would want. But will Library of Congress even change it? But we make recommendations for things that are more culturally correct. Is that what you mean? How they can contribute to the mix?
What I meant was that we have sort of one particular version of librarianship here that sort of kind of very much centers on freedom of speech and access and that sort of stuff, and that's sort of very foundational. And I think that it's probably, so what I meant was the sort of the model of librarianship where you got the rep desk and you're in a building with a lot of books in it and you've got computers, and it's sort of like the sort of cloud of stuff that we think of as being a librarian in the United States. I don't know what about that would be different in other countries. Even if they had all the money to buy all this stuff, would they even do it that way?
Yeah, in Africa, people like sitting on the floor more. we did try to, where, if that's what you mean, yeah, being culturally sensitive to, yeah. I know, not just forcing it on them, even though in some cases, they're the ones that want the Western ways. But to try to have a balance there. Yeah.
Or like, what, the old Soviet system, what, like, you referenced that, what was that? You know?
Okay, well, it's very centralized out of Moscow in terms of collection, and then they were cataloging and IRBIS, they use an IRBIS system, and they're putting in everything in Cyrillic, of course. And in some ways, they were doing some good things because they were trying to centrally, do what we think the Library of Congress is doing. And the Library of Congress shouldn't be probably for the whole world, I would love to see, you're right, I would love to see something more of a global.
Organic.
Yeah, because we're always talking about the Library of Congress, Library of Congress. Why not Library of the World, or, a central, well, maybe that's OCLC, I don't know, but again, that's American.
That's what they would like to be.
Which is
Or
very
you
This
American.
is
see
very
universal
interesting.
doing,
This
Yeah.
is very interesting, yeah.
But a great example of, I think, what you're talking about, and I think this is beginning to change around the world, is closed stacks.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
librarian was the intermediary
Thank
between
you,
you and the information.
Exactly.
So that's certainly a cultural shift. I think that's beginning to change around the world because of online access. But there are censorship issues.
Oh,
Yeah,
It's closed in
obviously.
Baku, at National
Yeah.
Library, you can't go in the stacks. You get a card out of that long card catalogs they're trying to convert, and you give it to someone who goes off and tries to find it in the dusty old stacks, yeah, exactly, and that's what we tout that as being something good that we have, and the students will like, can I touch them? Take 5 and go check them out, and take them home, and they're like, what? So, I mean, not all of them, but yeah, so,
But as a female director,
yeah.
so do you, I wonder, with all your international experiences, do you think gender, you have some, because of your gender, you encounter special obstacles? Or there's not such a thing as gender
I don't.
sort of discrimination?
I don't allow that.
I don't allow that, but have you encountered anything in different countries that they don't? No?
Yeah, I mean, there is that. I think some of the, I hate to say it, like from the, some of the older Soviet,
Yeah.
yeah, they don't want to shake your hand. There are sometimes, just
Oh.
because, I think if I were a man in some cases, in some places, I would have been given more respect. But I don't know. Most of my staff are men, and,
They're fine taking
oh,
orders
yes,
from you.
oh, yes, they have
That's
to.
fine.
They're not, yeah, I can show you the.
But I think some of that is the fact that you're not a part of the culture, that's like an exception. Because I've seen
Yeah.
this in other countries.
Yes.
I mean, interestingly,
Yeah.
in universities, in emerging countries that are opening up universities, they often hire women or men who are chancellors or vice chancellors after they retire to come in for 3 years and
Yeah.
do some things, and then they're gonna move on. So, you're sort of in a special situation, and that sort of shields you
Right.
from some of those
People will
genders.
say, well,
Yeah.
you're sort of like a man.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, in other words, the role I'm taking is, because you see, most of my staff, yeah.
That's interesting because here, do we have more female librarians than?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
in the
But not-
trenches, when I
Right.
started as a librarian, most of the ARL
Yeah.
libraries were directed by men.
Uh-huh.
So that's really only switched in the last 20 years, and now it's mostly women. But the same thing has happened in medicine and law, so
Right.
there's been
Oh,
some
right,
shifts
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Well, and it's also true that higher management positions are still
Yeah.
largely held by men.
Yeah.
But even so, like librarianship is historically women's role.
Profession.
Yeah.
Except in
Yeah.
heading up
Like service.
academic libraries.
In which
Yeah.
case
Because
it's
you were
just legacy
supposed
at
to
this
be
point.
like the faculty, so it was a
Right.
male with a PhD is who all these
Yeah.
university libraries would hire.
It's more access about education. I think male has more access, have more access.
And I think especially in Africa, I was always treated royally, and some of that is a race thing too, left over from the colonial days, you know? It was like, I was put on a pedestal.
Well, actually, that has to do with culture, because if you go to visit in Asian countries, if you're a guest, they respect you, they treat you very well. Not like, I mean, they treat you like a special person. So,
Yes, yes.
so that's not like here, because everyone is equal, you don't feel that special, but but if you go to work in a Chinese library, they do give you a lot, you know, they are very friendly. And
But when I get on the metro, I mean, there is not a woman standing, there is not a man sitting usually. I mean, they immediately get up, all the men, if a woman
you
comes
mean
in.
Azerbaijan?
In Azerbaijan, and
Wow, cool.
it's not always, I mean, it's just something very interesting in the metro. And then I go to like Holland or something and nobody stands up because it's democratic. The first person there gets the seat, you know? So.
Boston, you don't get,
Interesting.
people don't get up
No,
there.
no.
Well,
I do.
they do,
I do.
yeah.
What
I
about
do for
censorship
elderly.
and Azerbaijan?
Censorship, yes, good question.
Anyone.
There is, I mean, in my library, I don't censor, except I use some judgment calls, you know? And I know in Cairo too, we put some things in special collections. And I suppose that's a self-censorship. Some things that are very controversial. And it's just a way of handling it, it is what it is, you know, what can you do? You don't want, there was an incident where in the newspaper, it got a hold of one of the books in the library. And it was out there and it was becoming a really big thing. And we just put it in special collections, and that is censorship. But in terms of the government, I bring in all the books I want. There is a list, but, and I think part of that is because we're at a university, nobody's ever called us on anything or examined what's in the catalog. Yeah.
But this, I'm a SCIRRT community as well, public community, no? Just
No, it
the
says the Ministry of Foreign Affairs now, the EU, we have an EU grant of 40,000 to bring in books for them because they're civil servants, European NGO type or governmental
Yeah.
people in, no, but it's not open to the public. I do guest, you know, I allow them to sign up as visitors. They're doing research.
So what type of, going back to the censorship
Yeah.
question, what types of materials would you possibly, you said controversial things, so like what does that entail for Azerbaijan?
Political, religious, pretty much, yeah.
or pornography, right?
Oh, well, I don't order pornography. We have one book though, there was a mistake because it did not, when I ordered it, I did not think it was gonna be what it was, and that is sitting downstairs in it just never sort of made it upstairs. So I guess in that way, it's censorship, and maybe everybody does that to a
Well, we
certain
do that here too.
I'm sure,
It's
there's
just like-
sort of, you have
I mean,
to.
then it's like, is it relevant for your collection? Probably
It's not relevant for the
That's my-
courses, so I can say this is a mistake. It's not relevant for the courses, but, yeah. Well, I hope I've been helpful, and I'd be really glad to talk to any of you one-on-one. I could give you my, let's see, my address is just, okay, this is a little harder. You can just do marthaspiers@gmail.com, my name. You spell it right with the E-I-R-S. It's on, I think it's been advertised. No, I'm happy to talk to any of you, and I'm really anxious to do anything you would like. If somebody has some ideas, maybe we could share scholarship, you know how we were talking about for conferences, other ideas. I'd be glad to.
Do you actually have any stipends available for interns? If
I
someone
can come
really
up with,
wanted to go
yes,
there?
so we do memorandum of understanding, and if I make a proposal, I could come up with some money.
Because we do have a capstone, course here, which would be a special project or an internship. Students sometimes do those in different places, so they could get academic credit, but if they got some funding, then it might be possible.
Well, we have the internationalization office, and they are trying to set up things all over the world. Like I say, we do have a lot of international students. But I would love to have people come in just to sort of mentor my staff to a certain extent. I mean, even though they may be older or more experienced, it's nice to have a mix. And maybe somebody has really good background on, doing a repository or doing something that we really haven't worked on that much. And it could be for the library school or, if somebody wanted to come, I don't know, faculty, students, staff.
Do summer program, also teach some class, like Yangtze.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. Some of it depends on what you need. We have a digital stewardship certificate here. So we have some students who've actually, built institutional repositories. I think that's the kind of thing that you're talking about.
No, and I can write it up as a project, but it's just figuring out the details, about the airfare, the housing, those things. But no, I'm ready to participate if anyone has a good proposal.
And you're returning to Azerbaijan?
Tonight, yeah, I'm going to JFK tonight. Like in a few hours. So I'll be back there.
Thank you so much for coming to visit
Yeah,
with
I'm
us.
doing Azal direct, JFK Baku, one of the first direct lines, 11 and a half hours, 12 hours.
Wow.
But I also have an NGO in Africa, in Yola, which is now in Boko Haram territory. But, you know when I come, do you? I need help there, and I was actually talking to, I think there was 2 students here, years ago, about coming. And it's a library and literacy project, and we still have this place there, and I have a couple of great guys on the ground who've kept it going, Karatu Library Project. And I know we can't do anything with that now, but it certainly would be great to get some students over there when things calm down, maybe. Or when I start one in another country. But that's the other thing that's really great. Like I did some things out in the community that weren't necessarily, be at the university, but I had started this NGO, in Nigeria. And I haven't done something in Azerbaijan yet, and part of the problem is language. Because the students, don't ship them box of English books, because they won't, maybe beginning, but, so that's.
What about books in Russian?
Yeah, Russian, yes. If you want to donate any Russian books, I can find a place for it.
Actually, I'm wondering, like, the country at large, like, what is like the literacy rate, and what is it, you talk so much about, like, the different scripts that have been used, like, so, is there, like, certain areas or portions of the population that are highly literate in Cyrillic script, but not in anything else, like?
Definitely, and I don't have those figures, but the older population, very literate and very in Cyrillic and Russian, even Cyrillic with Azerbaijani, but that's mostly was spoken, oral. But the younger people now, they are required that you take either English or Russian, and most of them are taking both, or, certainly English is becoming very, very popular. They know they can get the big jobs. All the multinational corporations are coming in, they want to work for BP or some of those other, they know they need to know English.
What about being literate in Azerbaijan?
Well, Azerbaijani is usually their first language, and,
Spoken language, but.
No, I have books in Azerbaijani, but like I said, the publication system is not very good.
Right.
It's not very strong, to self-publish a lot. But, I don't have the figures right now.
No, that's.
But it's very
Just
interesting
impressions.
how it's changed over these last 20 years because of breaking away and becoming their own country. It's a very interesting opportunity I've been able to have to see these things change and grow. Yeah. Well, I hope that helps a little bit, and I hope, I'm sure I was gonna say some other things I've forgotten.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.